All right, guys, cameras just went off. We just did the Chicago video, and I felt the strange but exciting urge to show him Hard to Say I'm Sorry, because I love that song. It was on the top, I think it's number 3 on their Spotify. I was like, how's he going to feel about it? It's super 80s.
So he starts playing it, very 80s. I actually liked the song a lot, but immediately, though, I recognize something. Mm-hmm. That the top 4 songs of theirs on Spotify, which is not the biggest metric of all time, but it's certainly a metric, right? Mm-hmm. And it's by a wide margin. The top 4 songs are all a totally different sound of Chicago than anything we've hit on the channel. It's stuff you know from your parents. Mm-hmm. But I don't really know too well. The Hard to Say I'm Sorry was the only snippet I've heard of that era. Mm-hmm. And immediately I was like, how are they not more well-known for the stuff that I know? Like 2564 is like maybe a fourth of their, the size of their 4th biggest song. Which blows my mind and feels, quite honestly, not right on a moral level.
Yeah, I think part of it is that the audience of their kind of 80s progression was more Gen X, and more Gen X definitely uses Spotify, but their 80s stuff definitely also did sell better. So I think it's a mixture of the two.
It just blows my mind considering that there are bands like Zeppelin, The Who, Pink Floyd, who have kind of transcended, and now they're in the cultural zeitgeist, even for kids our age. They don't all know their music. Mm-hmm. We certainly didn't.
But they know their names and stuff.
But they know their names, and they probably know what they think they sound like. And I think that's it. They know what they think they sound like. If you had to describe it in words, you'd be like, Zeppelin. Aren't they Dungeons and Dragons?
But rock band.
But
right?
rock band, yeah. They're Vikings who also roll D20s. And play a really electric lute. They know that stuff. But when I think of Chicago, I think of 25 or 64. Yeah. That's what I think of. And it's crazy to me that there's a whole subsect, and probably maybe even a majority of people that think of Chicago as I'm hard to say I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And especially people in our generation, our age, when they hear the word Chicago, they might not know the band name at all. But if they do, super hella heavy chance that it's because of the love songs. And they go, oh, it's that love song band. That is legit their first thought. Probably have no idea.
Wasn't that yours?
That was for sure my, we hit 25 or 64 on the channel a couple years ago, and that was my first time ever hearing them in that context, and I love them so much more for it, because I love them for the love songs and all that sappy shit, and obviously I was loving rock and roll at that point, so hearing 25 or 64 was transcended everything, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad.
I think it's good ultimately, because it's so dope that they had such a great run and completely nailed it, knocked it out of the park, solidified themselves in if you're a music lover and you like that kind of music of rock and roll 70s and all that stuff, 24/64, a lot of their other songs, or at least a good couple probably, and it's so dope that they're able to go into the 80s, not be cringe in terms of they were able to sell fucking crazy and have a completely separate wave where to a lot of people might as well have been a completely new band. They nailed it out of the park twice.
They really did.
It's insane.
Well, I can't say they really did because I don't know much, but from that little snippet that I heard, we didn't even go through the whole song. I guess what bothers me is that I would like some representation, if you would. I feel I
agree. I do agree.
I feel 25 or 64 and a bunch of their other songs, but specifically that one, that's their
I would love it
notable.
if that was the number 1 on there,
or even number 2, or even number 3, but number 5, and then the next one up is 4 times.
It doesn't
bigger
feel
than
right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
for sure.
I feel like God should not have let that happen. Capital G God should have stepped in and been like, hey, let's just smooth this.
Is this a legit argument against us being in a simulation? That can't be the case if this is this way.
Or it is a simulation? I'm not. Elon Musk, please weigh in. I know you're busy with Joe Rogan and doing space shit, but
come down to earth for a second. We know you're an alien, and just answer this for us. Explain it, why this is the way it is.
It does give me, knowing both sides, that I think is awesome. It also makes me wonder if that's going to happen with a bunch of 80s group, if that's just kind of how it goes, because they were on the precipice of those two ages. They had one blow up and then another blow up, 70s and 80s.
I definitely think you didn't have 80s bands who were doing stuff in anywhere near tangential to that realm going into 90s and doing grungy
You're
stuff.
Probably
it does not
right.
go the other way. That was one time in history where you're able to really have that. That's why I think it's so cool.
Yeah, that is, because even in 90s to 2000s, that didn't really happen.
Yeah, for sure. Like they transcended like decades in a way that I don't know if I've seen any band do, really, if you think about it. At least not with like, you've seen bands go into it usually doing the same stuff or really adapting their sound to the times.
Yeah.
Whereas with them, they're like, honestly,
feels like a
let's
totally
just
different
let's
band.
just do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of the coolest aspects for me of it, and why I think it has so much validity and why it isn't cringe at all, is because Peter Cetera was the original like bass player. I'm pretty sure, and if he wasn't the original, he was definitely on the first record and very much there. Did a lot of the vocals and stuff, and I'm sure he does a bunch of the writing with this stuff. And he has an amazing voice, and I think that's part of. Also, I think they had a big like crossover with even some of their old fans, because I'm sure a lot of like rock heads were like, "Oh my god, this is terrible. I'm done. Old stuff. Only I'm gonna pretend this isn't even happening."
Yeah.
And there were some who probably really liked his voice. They like Chicago, and let's say they're also into that kind of stuff even a little bit. And they're only going there up front for them and for like his voice, or just like knowing what he did then and wanting to see like at this point seeing him thrive now. And it's like, dang, this is so cool.
Yeah, I also think since they blew up so big, it's really easy if you're on the side of the fence of loving his voice and loving him for just who he is and who the band is, independent of kind of the exact style that they're doing. Them blowing up a second time, even bigger than the first time, only compounds your ability to do that.
Yeah.
So it was just really interesting to note. I don't know any other cases of stuff that I've seen like that where, to me, like 2564 that's the bee's knees, right? And it's a massive song. It's so good. But in comparison to what we saw in there, it didn't really hold a candle to it numbers-wise. And so it was just a little astounding, and I felt like we had to talk about it because I need to cope.
You need closure on this.
I need to cope. I'm certainly not going to get closure. I'm not even near closure.
The comment section might get you there.
It could do that. It could maybe do that. There's going to be a very long-winded comment that I'll read through at 1 a.m. when I can't sleep. That'll give me peace of mind.
Okay. Just to make you feel a little better, it's not 4 times less than the next one up. It's half the size of Hard to Say I'm Sorry. And number 3 and 4 are both Hard to Say I'm Sorry. One is the single version.
That makes me feel even worse.
Oh, really?
Because there are so it's Hard to Say I'm Sorry. There's 2 versions of it that are above it. And the second biggest one of those 2 songs, it's the same song twice. So the copy of somebody's homework, basically, is more than twice as big. This makes me feel not good at all. I hope you guys are doing well at home. I'm going to need a deep therapy session. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you had a great time hanging out with us, listening to some amazing freaking music. If you want to check out some more Chicago stuff we've hit here on the channel, that'll be right here. We're going to go hang out on the Patreon, aka the Cool Kids Club, not Weenie Hut Juniors. That'll be right there on the Patreon. See you there.